It is 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. That means it is time for the Podpage monthly meetup. So glad you are here. If you're watching live now, feel free to say howdy in the chat room. We'll make sure that is working. And also, the favorite question that everyone loves to ask, and that is, of course, is this being recorded? And yeah, it is. And I see I'm live on YouTube, so that's good to go. I see Ralph is here from AskRalph.com. I think that's where you can find all of Ralph's stuff. And what we're going to be talking about today is pitching your show. And you've probably heard of this. Mark, there you go, from the Empowered Podcast. Can't wait to head down there to that conference. That's going to be fun. And if you think about this, let's say you're at the Empowered Podcast Conference, and somebody says, "So, like, what brings you to the conference? Like, tell me about your show." And you go, "Oh, it's well, kind of like that." And you're like, "What? No, you have to be ready to with confidence say what your show's about, who's it for, things of that nature." One link I'm going to throw into the chat room here before we get going. That is a link to a Google form, because if you're an elite podcast or Podpage member, you already get Podcast Polish. If you want one, check your help menu for that, or under design, I think is where that is as well. But we are now at Podpage once a month going to be giving away a website makeover, which I don't know. There's something about that. I hear women screaming when I say the word makeover. That's usually the reaction. But yeah, if you would like if you're a current Podpage customer and you're like, hey, I like my site, but I want to have it stand out even more, go over, fill out that form. We're going to be picking one person a month to receive a website makeover. So how fun is that? And with that, we're running in here about 3 minutes in. So I am not that guy that's like, well, let's talk about my cat for 5 minutes while we wait for those people that couldn't get here on time. I'm just jumping in. I'm an old school teacher back in the business world, and I just let people know, hey, guess what? If you're late to my class, we'll get you caught up on the next lesson. So let's get to it. We're going to start off. Yeah, Ralph says, people tell him all the time I need a makeover. I need a haircut, and I'm happy to report next Tuesday. It's about time. We're getting looking like a hippie here. Got to look clean because I'm going to Chicago next week, at the end of next week. So, I got to look presentable. So with that, here's the thing. I went over, this one's slightly it's the same thing, but it's slightly different. And that is that it's from Apple. And this is what they say about your podcast description, which it's different than an elevator pitch, but they say your description should tell people, the listeners, what kind of content you talk about and explain how people can benefit from listening. So who doesn't want to benefit? Like if somebody comes up to you and says, hey, would you like more money? Hey, would you like more time in the day? Would you like, less headaches? I don't know too many people like money. Oh, ugh. No, we all want to benefit, whatever that is. Hey, would you like to lose weight without really working at it? Yes, please. I will take that. Right? We all like to benefit. And so many times I see people write a description and it's like, and I'm just going to do this really generic, right? It's the interesting show where we interview interesting people about interesting stories. Okay. So myself as the listener can do what? Like what's that for me? I'll have dinner party talk. I heard this thing on a podcast, right? What's in it for the listener? There's people that always talk about the old radio, the most important radio station, WIF. Let's see, how's that go? What's in it for me? Yes, WIFM. What's in it for me? That's what your audience is thinking. which makes them sound very selfish, but it's called their time and they're giving it up and they want something for that. So Dr. Julie says, hey, this is great. We should be writing our description and titles based on benefits. I have a problem with this sometimes with when I'm doing things for a business and I will say things like, "Oh, it's this like I'll give you an example. Like a lifetime ago, like forever, I had black hair. That's how long ago it was. I worked in the copier industry and we had Minolta copiers and it had microtoner. Microtoner. Now that's a feature like now with microtoner. Great. But that's the feature. The benefit was sharper images, better images. So if you went to a customer, you're like, hey, want to buy a copier? We've got microtoner. They're not into that. But if you explain the benefit, hey, would you like a copy machine that look this great image and look how crisp and clean it is? Okay, now you've got their attention. So yeah, we want to really point out the benefits. And so many times we point out things like it's weekly. Okay, that's good to know. Not horrible information, but do you choose your podcast? And I know some people that do on the schedule. So in a way, that's a feature, but is it a benefit? So we'll talk about this as we go along because it's hard to come up with a this is the puzzle. I have one at the end that we'll talk about. So when I looked into this, what's a good elevator pitch? Because that's really what we're talking about. It's clear and concise, typically 1 to 3 sentences, right? So now that's kind of hard because we're podcasters. Getting to the point, not always our strong sort, our strong point, right? No jargon. That one I kind of went, because I looked at a couple different places and they brought this up, and I kind of get that, but there's a part of me that goes, if I said the word bandwidth, like depending on what the show is about, or bit rate, that's podcasting jargon, but it's also a way to draw that line in the sand that if you don't understand what that means, this show probably isn't for you. So I kind of get the no jargon because the whole idea, if you think about this, yes, this is for the potential listener, but if you can make it really easy to remember, then everybody can say it, even if they're not your target audience. Again, another lifetime ago, I used to design websites for people. Now I work for a company that designs websites for people, but one of my top referrers was my sister-in-law because she could say what I did easily. So that's the advantage of kind of keeping it simple and easy to understand. So no rambling. It also says who it's for. And if your answer is everybody, I'm sorry. That is not an acceptable answer in almost all cases, unless you're doing a show about, I don't know, confidence. Who doesn't want more confidence? But the more niche down you get, so now it's how to be a more confident first time interracial parent. Ooh, we cut out a whole bunch of people by doing that. But you're going to end up with a smaller audience that's more engaged. They're like, yes, this was made for me. But you have to say who it's for, because that way, as soon as somebody sees that, they're like, oh, that's they're talking about me. So who it's for, what it's about. I remember back when I used to work in the music industry and people, I'd be like, so tell me about your band. And they'd be like, well, me and Johnny met in we were 6 in the garage. And you're like, no. Like, what's the name of your band? Who do you sound like? Let's just like get to it. So what is it about? And then this is a tough one. What makes it different? Because if I said right now, well, it's an interview show where we interview entrepreneurs about their journey and any tips on running a business. Okay. And what show is that? About 50 of them, right? It's hard to sometimes really come up with something that's completely different. So, but if it's a good one, right, that's a goal to set. How can I do something that's different? And sometimes the difference is the schedule. I talked about the schedule early, and in the early days, back in the day of podcasting, John Lee Dumas, he wasn't the first show to do a daily show, but he was one of the first in the entrepreneur space that did a daily show. He does eofire .com is where John's at, but that made him different at the time. Today, not so much. But if you are crazy enough to do a daily show, God bless you. That's a lot of work. Ralph knows that. Sparks curiosity. It leaves people wanting more. And if you think about TV shows, TV shows are great. Right now, I literally on this monitor, I have the show Blind Spot on Netflix. And the whole point of this show is to confuse you. It's like, so the premise of the show is a woman gets dropped off in a bag in front of FBI headquarters. She's naked, covered in tattoos. And it turns out that these tattoos are clues for crimes that are going to happen. And so we're trying to figure out who is this person. That's the other thing. She has no complete amnesia. She remembers how to talk and eat and breathe, but pretty much everything else is gone, and fight and kick, of course, because, who would forget that? But there's a lot of like, wait, what? So every episode, there's a cliffhanger that leaves you wanting more. So anytime you can kind of do curiosity, we have some examples today. And there's one that I'm like, there's that curiosity that you're like, hey, I want to know more about that. Yeah. Well, here we go. Ralph's stealing my thunder. That's all right, buddy. I know this. He said, what you said is why you better not use AI for elevator pitches, because AI is the definition of what is not different. So be careful using AI. I went to AI and had it design a couple here. We'll get to these in a couple slides. And I was kind of like, artificial, yes. Intelligent, maybe jury's still out on that. So use simple language, visual language, right? We want to invoke the theater of the mind sometimes. That kind of goes with curiosity. So you can see the more ingredients we add, this isn't quite as simple, but I'll show you a simple template to get you going. And also realize this is one of those things, it's a recipe. You can change this anytime you want. Nobody's going to be like, hey, that's not what you told me the last time. Well, I changed it. I got better at it. So here, if you want to do this, if you got a pen and paper around, write down who your podcast is for. So, male, female, all, whatever, age, etc. Write down what your show helps them do. Because typically, now realize sometimes it's like, well, I help people, I don't know, do woodworking, or I help them understand their taxes or prep for a bad day or whatever it is. But also sometimes your podcast helps them forget the fact that their boss is a jerk and they just had a horrible day at work. And you're just going to be that lovely entertainment that Calgon, take me away, except they say the name of your show there. So that might be something that you do, that you're just a way to do that. Hello, Stan. And then if you want, combine them into one clear sentence. That's one way to kind of just start the process of like, because if you got to think about it, who is this for? What are they looking to do? That's because that's the dough that we're going to need to put together a pitch. All right. So far, so good. I was going to play Jeopardy music, but I figured that would get me kicked off of YouTube or something like that. So, all right. So keep that in mind. Here's so I asked our good friend AI, in this case, I believe it was ChatGPT, and I said, hey, here's what we're doing. I'm explaining what a pitch is. Give me some examples. And so what I did was I highlighted these words to kind of show kind of these parts that we just talked about. So I host a podcast. So this might be, you. I host a podcast that helps new businesses, new business owners. So that's who it's for, market themselves. So that kind of, we're talking marketing without burning out. So the without burning out is the benefit, right? We're talking about marketing benefit. And I was like, okay, not the best pitch I've ever heard, but the without burning out is slightly vague to where you go like, well, what do you mean? How do you not burn out? Oh, okay. That's really what you want to do, is you want to say your pitch to someone and have them either go, wait, where can I find that? Or we'll expand on that. As long as we've got them engaged, that's really the goal. Here's another one. And these are, by the way, these are made up names. This is just ChatGPT, you know. So the Cold Case Coffee, because I said, give me a true crime pitch, is a podcast for true crime fans. Who is it for? Who want to hear unsolved mysteries explained clearly. So I don't know if I'm not a big true crime fan. I don't know if they're not explaining things clearly, but in this case, that would set them apart. While sipping their morning coffee, each episode under 20 minutes. So again, I'm not super familiar with true crime. I listened to Serial back in the day, but maybe that's something that makes you different. Ours is under 20 minutes. Everybody else is doing a 45-minute to an hour kind of thing. But who is it for? What do they want? So in this case, I want unsolved mysteries. I want to hear about people getting away with murder because I have somebody who's really on my nerves. That's always my worry when I listen to true crime. I'm like, are we just teaching people how to, is this a how-to podcast in disguise? I hope not. There are other ways to get along with people. All right, next up. This was a movie review show. So they called it the Indie Flick Fix. Say that 3 times fast. For movie lovers. That's who it's for. Who want honest. I prefer my reviews dishonest, but okay. But who want honest, spoiler-free reviews of indie films. So not just films, indie films. So we're getting a little niche down so they can find hidden gems without wasting time. So get to the point. No time wasting here. Indie films, spoiler-free. I know every time I see somebody, there's a movie that just came out from Pixar and somebody was reviewing it. And I love the fact that it said spoiler free. I'm like, I might go see this and I don't want to watch it and then go, now I know how it ends. It's like the Jurassic Park movie. I don't know how that's going to end at all. Right. Dr. Julie says, I just actually had a guest on my podcast who hosts Ice Cold Case, a true crime podcast. Well, again, it is AI. They have been known to scrape things, but I told it to make up names. So, sometimes, again, AI not the most creative thing. I said, give me a woman empowerment podcast, because I see a lot of those. Is a podcast, oddly enough, for women ready to level up and this is what it talks about, confidence, careers, and mindset in a 10-minute daily boost. And this is the one, when I first looked at it, I go, wait, I have no idea what this show's about. And then I was like, well, confidence, careers, and mindset. I'm like, okay, that's the topic, I guess. But sometimes when you throw in these kind of just generic words, I'm like, I want to know, like when I hit play, do I know what's going to come out when I hit play on this? And then it was like, okay, no, confidence, careers, and mindset. Mindset's a thing. So I get that. And then maybe their differential here is it's a 10-minute daily boost. All right. Again, who's it for? How are they going to benefit? So in this case, they're going to benefit by being more confident, having career advice, and then maybe a better mindset. So I said, give me a football, pitch. So the 12th Man Show is for Seattle Seahawks fans who want inside takes, game breakdowns, and community stories to fuel their fandom all week long. The one thing that dawned on me as I looked at that, I go, this is a podcast around a team, but it's not really about the team. It's about the fans. And I was like, that would be kind of different than like, hey, we're going to talk about how the quarterback stinks. This is more about other fans talking about other fans, because it is. If you watch American football, the Seattle Seahawks talk about their fans are the 12th person on the field. And I was like, okay, that's a little different. All right, couple more here. This was one for like Ralph has a grit. I always forget the name of this. Business Grit and Confident. No, I always get your shows mixed up, but I know there's Business Grit. And so I said, give me kind of a entrepreneur, business startup kind of, pitch. And it said, Bootstrap Stories is a podcast for entrepreneurs. Who is it for? Who want to hear real, unpolished, I thought was an interesting thing, which is a thing, by the way. Unpolished stories. There are times Jim Harold does the paranormal podcast, and Jim has been doing it for 20 years. And he's got this really cool background that he's built over the years, and he's got great gear, and he just does a great job. He's writes a ton of books. That's how he monetizes, along with he has a membership thing. And Jim got feedback once. He's like, "Well, I like the show, but it's a little too polished." And I was like, "What? Like, you can't win. On one hand, I want to be polished because I'm competing with CNN, but if you're too polished, you just can't win sometimes." So real is the other one, real stories of people who built businesses from scratch. And in this case, the differential is I don't want people that are getting angel investing without outside funding. It's like, all right. So there's who's it for? What are they going to get? Unpolished. So here he's not specifically saying what you're going to get, right? You're getting real unpolished stories, but there's not really like, what's the benefit? You kind of have to put this one in yourself. And then you might want to add that, who built businesses from scratch with outside funding so you can follow in their footsteps. And that's maybe why it's not there. It's kind of a duh kind of thing, but sometimes you want to put the benefit there because, if you think about it, if you watch every YouTuber, many of them still say like, subscribe, and ring the bell, right? Well, why do they do that? We all know where the subscribe button. It's right. It's over here somewhere. Left is right. Right is left. Right. There's the subscribe button. So why do we say that? Because sometimes that little nudge will get people to do that. So this is a generic, very generic template. So if you don't want to use AI, this is, again, we're not saying this is the perfect, like if you just fill this in, you're done and that's the best pitch ever. But if you're really stuck, this is a good place to start. I host a podcast for, whoever it is. So let's take podcast website tips. I host a podcast for podcasters who have a website that helps them get more traffic to their website and understand SEO and tools and such, but primarily get more traffic to their website so that they can sell more stuff, get more listeners, whatever it is, grow their email list, all those things you do on your website. So, there we go. The Fit Mess says, go Hawks. There you go. So that's a generic template, and that's always a good one just for everything. Like, okay, who is this for, and what are we helping them do, right? So my show, the School of Podcasting, I help people plan, launch, and then grow is there. That's the benefit of their show. And sometimes, depending on whom I'll talk to, I'll drop launch, or no, I'll drop plan, launch. Yeah, I'll drop plan, even though that's the most important step. And I'll just say launch, grow, and monetize because it's that whole magic of 3. If I said 4, that's just too many. I can't take it. So with that, let's continue on. So I said to AI, and then we're going to get to your pitches here in just a second. I said, okay, write an AI, write a pitch for the New York Times, the Daily. And it said, this is how news should sound. And that was one that I was like, that's interesting because in text, you don't know what they mean. This is how news should sound. 20 minutes a day, 5 days a week, hosted by Michael Barbario and powered by New York Times journalism. So there are a couple things I like that. I like the kind of opening, it's news. This is how it should sound. Kind of that curiosity, like, well, what do you mean? I don't know what that means. So it's kind of curious. 20 minutes a day, 5 days a week. So I know exactly what I'm getting. Don't know Michael Barbario, but it is fun to say Barbario because you almost want to throw in a third one. Barbario. You're just on a roll. And then New York Times throws in, hey, this is legit. If you're a New York Times fan. I said, all right, write one for Crime Junkie, apparently done by Audio Chuck. Again, not a true crime person. If you can never get enough true crime, congratulations, you found your people. And what's interesting about this is it says, okay, who's it for? People that can't get enough of true crime. What are you going to get? It doesn't really, and I was like, but there is something about that screams like, if you love true crime, like this is it. This is welcome home. So I was like, all right, I kind of like that one, even though it doesn't really, remember how I said it's a recipe, not a statue. But I was kind of like, you know what? If I was in an elevator And I said, so tell me what your show is about. And they said, oh, it's called Crime Junkie. And if you just can't get enough true crime, welcome home. This is really what you're looking for. So you just know it's like true crime. And I'm like, okay. There's nothing there about schedule. There's nothing there about is it solved or not. So I don't know. That one, the curiosity factor of me just kind of was, I think this one, the attitude. I think that's what I liked about this, the attitude and the vibe of it. All right. So we're going to learn together. I'm going to try something new. That's right. I've never used this technology. We'll put some of these up on the screen here. But if you want to point your phone at that or go to podcast website tips.com/call, you can jump into the call. But let's throw up Nancy. I know Nancy. She's a member of the School of Podcasting. Family, Tree, Food, and Stories, where every meal has a story and every story is a feast. I like it. I know it sounds like a show originally about recipes, right? Family, food. Every meal has a story. So we know it's stories about food, and every story is a feast. So it's a storytelling show about food. There's not much there about the benefit, but I do get the gist of it. If you have any comments, and this is where I said we're all going to learn together. So if you go, I would tweak this. What if we said this or that? Because Nancy can go, oh, that's a good idea and change it. Or she might go, oh, that's a good idea and then ignore it. It's one of those things. Sonic Adventures, I think this is your pitch. In first dimensional time travel. That is one, again, I have no clue what that is. Sonic Adventures. It could be a show about audio and, tweaking audio, things like that. Time travel makes me think that some sort of science fiction thing. So that's a little, this one leaves me personally, I don't know what I'm getting. I have no idea what I'm getting when I click on that. I kind of think it's an audio show. So I'm just going to think out loud here. Let me switch over to this screen. Yeah, Randy says, look at Dave using the new tool, Call Me from Rode. Yeah, I was going to wait till Saturday. And I'm like, hey, I'm doing a webinar today. Let's see if we can break it. I've never used this technology, by the way. But yeah, you could also, if you don't want to point your phone at it, that is the link. The Fit Mess says, we're about to rebrand. Here's the direction I'm thinking of going. Brobots, right there, you got me. I love the phrase Brobots is a podcast for men, kind of figured that out, who want to use AI to safely manage their mental health. Okay, so who's it for? Bros. What's it about? AI. And how are we going to benefit? We're going to manage our mental health. I like that. I know who it's for and I know what I'm going to get. We're going to talk about AI. So kudos to that. Just go get, brobots.com or something and you're good to go. Yeah, Nancy's like that. It's pretty funny. Again, sometimes your pitch kind of shows your attitude, right? And if it's sarcastic and fun, that's kind of cool if your show's sarcastic and fun. So keep that in mind. So here's one. A production point says, from your past to my future. Well, we're missing some things there. Is that what Sonic Adventures is about? Because I see that's where that you had Sonic Adventures, first dimensional time travel from my past to your future. See, now I'm even more confused because Sonic Adventure sounds like a show about audio. Time travel makes me think of Star Trek and such. From my past to from your past to my future makes me think it's a psychology show where you deal with your past and how to. Yeah. So if anybody else understands that much better than I am, feel free to chime in here. Okay, he's chiming in, which is good. Like I said, we're all going to learn together. I am of your past. You are in my future, Sonic. Is this a sci-fi show? Give me that. Is this a show about audio? What's it about? because that's a cool kind of, vague. It definitely kind of like, wait, what kind of vibe to it? But like, what's the show about? Let's start there. And then who's it for? Let's go back to those two things. Who is it for and what's it about? That was like slide number 1, if I remember right, because that's really for a good pitch. Because if you say it's for IT directors in schools, Randy Black is like, well, wait, he's talking to me. What is it? So keep that in mind. And Randy has been playing with the new Call Me feature from Rode. He says it's amazing. I actually played with it today and I called in from a computer and then called in from my phone, and it made all sorts of very strange noises. I don't think because I have the Rodecaster Duo, and I don't think it liked that I had too many people calling in. It's brand new. It's in beta if you haven't heard about this, but this could make it really fun. Now it's not video, but it's again, it's a new feature for having people if you're trying to do a call-in show and you don't feel like giving out your phone number because people in Germany will call you at 3 a.m. Yeah, that's happened. I used to do that. I used to have my phone number on my website. What was I thinking? So I don't do that anymore. All right. So I was hoping maybe they're thinking again that we would get more on from podcast production point. If you haven't put your pitch in the chat room, or again, if you go to podcastwebsitetips.com/call, which has a QR code, or you can just click this link. I'll throw this back up here. There we go. That will work. Yours will not fit in the chat window. It's supposed to be 3 sentences or less. Or, Ralph, you could be the first to click that link in the chat room and be the inaugural voyage of the Call Me thingamabob. It's a technical term. It's the thingamabob. And again, just to let me pull those back up. We said at the beginning that a pitch should be clear and concise, 1 to 3 sentences. Say who it's for, say what it's about, show what makes it different if you can, sparks curiosity, uses simple visual language, and those are the characteristics of a good pitch. And again, it's one of those things, and we said the one where I think that was this slide, nope, about I do this for so and so they can blank. It's a generic template, and that's a good place to start. But it can be something, I can't find that slide, doggone it. But there's a generic example in here. There it is. I host a podcast for, who's it for, that what it helps them do, whatever they're trying to do, so that they can then do whatever they want. What's the benefit? And that's the part that a lot of people miss. Randy says, I was at my home studio. If I was at my home studio, I would call in for you, Dave. Being at work, all I have is this crappy webcam. No, it's not if you use the call thingy, that's the technical term for it. It's just your voice. So here we go. I think this is, so Washington, I didn't realize there was a limit on the chat. Mine went slightly over the character limit. See my 2-part post. All right, let me see here. I've been watching the chat room pretty religiously. Here we go. Got it. All right, here we go. So from Washington Gardener Magazine, Garden DC is the podcast about everything gardening in Washington, D.C. and Mid-Atlantic region. Our content is aimed at gardening enthusiasts. Okay, so that's who it's for. Our content is aimed at gardening enthusiasts. Wait, let's go back to the first set. Is a podcast about everything gardening in Washington, D.C. Okay, so that's what it's about. Second sentence, who is it for? Gardening enthusiasts, people who grow everything from edibles to ornamentals, and native to exotics. If it grows in our area, that's what we talk about. Pretty cool. So we know who it's for. We know what we talk about. And I'm assuming that helps me not kill plants and such. So here we go. I missed a couple of these. The Stand Still podcast features guests who will demonstrate a specific skill or explain a particular topic. That's pretty vague. It is for people of all ages and will be done mainly via demonstrations. So this should be a video show. But the whole specific skill or particular topic, like one week it could be crocheting, and the next week it's, how to deliver a throat punch. Like that's, and there are things you can do, because there are times like, well, I don't want to just talk about one topic, but you can. Let's take Jordan Harbinger. The Jordan Harbinger show, super popular guy. And he talks to FBI agents, he talks to astronauts, but it's all through the lens of critical thinking. Like, here's this concept. How can we figure out logically how to put this into our life? So, Carl says, let's talk with Carl. Cutting through the noise and delivering the truth. The problem is, in the same way that many of you have no idea who Dave Jackson is, I don't know who Carl is. And so when I'm talking with Carl, I know he's going to cut through the noise, and I know he's going to talk about the truth. About what? Basketball, politics, cooking, and who's it for? Is it for men? Is it for women? Is it for kids? I get it, but that's a little too short. I'd add a little more to it. And Ralph is on the line with me now. How cool is that? In theory, Ralph, I should be able to hear you. I should, but I don't. Let me hit my button. A production point call. Okay, so it's not Ralph, it's a production point. Sorry about that. So I should be able to hear you. If you're there we go. I heard somebody just clear their throat. Speak.
Hello.
Yes, there we go. I hear you. Who am I talking with?
I'm getting a double echo.
Because you're listening. Yeah, you need to mute the website.
Echo cancellation.
That or just mute because you're hearing me through YouTube, which is about a 10-second delay, would be my guess. So, yeah.
I am the host and perpetrator of a production point.
Nice. So let's hear your pitch. Oh yeah, you were the one about your past is your time, your thing. So who's the show for?
Yes, it is a 1-hour show about sonic travel in the first dimension.
Okay.
First dimension is audio. The second dimension is video. The third dimension is we're all in the same room at the same time.
That's a little vague. I think, remember how the one slide was like, we want to have it so that everybody can get it. And I'm not sure now, obviously, hey, it's your show. You can use your pitch however you want, but you kind of want it because if it's really clear and easy to remember, then other people can say it. And so when you use simple visual language, but when you say first dimension, second dimension, I don't know that everybody's going to know that the second dimension is, audio or whatever. And Ralph, I see you calling in. We'll get to you in just a second. Hang tight, buddy. So who's it for? Who's your show for? Mr. Production Person. Oh, you know what? That means he left. So I will put Ralph on. And when I click on number 1 and a production point, we'll get right back to you. So he apparently dropped off. Ralph, how are you?
Good, Dave. How are you?
Good. If you could hold are you on your computer or your phone?
I am on my computer.
Okay, good. So let's hear your pitch.
Okay, so this is for my Grit and Growth business show.
Grit and Growth. Thank you. I could not remember that earlier.
Okay, the check will be in the mail, Dave.
All right.
So Grit and Growth business is for small business owners who build it from the ground up. I give real practical coaching to help you fix what's broken, grow without burnout, and finally build a business that supports your life.
Nice. So I see who it's for. I see the benefit, avoiding burnout, and then the benefit of the last sentence that you just said. So I think you've hit most of the touch points. I think you did a good job, man.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the heads up.
Beautiful. And thanks for calling in.
No problem, Dave. Take care, my friend.
Next up we got, and what's weird is we just had Sharon. And Sharon, you went off my screen. There she is. Sharon is now on the call. Most of the touch points. Sharon, I'm hearing you back at me.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the heads up.
Beautiful. And thanks for there's a depth.
No problem, Dave. Take care, my friend.
Next up we got, and what's weird is we had and Sharon's listening to the YouTube thing. Sharon. And so Sharon hung up. Okay. Let's go to production point. And we're going to replace that. There we go. So a production point, you're back on the line. Who's your show for?
Yes, my show is for anyone wanting to be aware of seriously spiritual conversive parody.
Say that one more time. Seriously?
Spiritually serious conversive parody. I got it wrong. I'm sorry, I wrote it wrong.
No, that's all right.
I'm still dealing with the echo factor here. I've tried to cancel it out, and this is the best I can do. But anyway, it's
if you just right click on the YouTube tab. So if you're looking at this on a computer, at the top where it shows YouTube, just right click on that tab and choose mute site. And then you'll only hear me through your phone or your website.
I would, except I'm only listening on my phone because I could not get decent sound on my YouTube computer channel.
Oh, fun.
Sorry about that.
No, that's all right.
Anyway, I'm just grateful you're starting this, and hope we can communicate again in the future. But it's a 1 hour listening channel for issues in my current past that is from your past that I'm trying to broadcast into the future. That's where the time travel kicks in.
But I don't know what your past is, so that doesn't really resonate
find
with
out
me
by listening to the show.
But if I don't know, there's a friend of mine, Eric K. Johnson, has a great line. He says, nobody gets on a bus without knowing where it's going. And if it's not clear enough as to what I'm getting into, I'm potentially less likely to press play. Now, if it's all about what the heck is this, you might get some people to click play, but usually people like to have an idea of where they're going.
I believe that. And at this time, it's going to be conversive comedy with a serious spiritual angle to it. Because some people may enjoy the comedy, some people may enjoy the seriousness of it, and in the meantime, I will unleash my tune channeling powers. I am a tune channeler, T-O-O-N. That means I can imitate many cartoon characters.
Well, there you go.
I'm also a tune channeler, T-U-N-E, which I compose original music. So I'm going to merge those together and hopefully have an hour of entertainment per week.
Well,
anybody that's listening?
Yeah, what's your website? Where can we find this? The delay thing is dreadful. Yeah, he's still here. If you can hear me, where can we find your website? Mr. Production Point. In the meantime, I'll give him 2 seconds here. We've got a couple in chat we can go to. That's interesting. Okay. Okay. So Nancy says the road call link, can you use this on any live show, or do you need to be on a specific Go Live platform? It's part of the Roadcaster. So the Roadcaster Duo or the Roadcaster Pro. So either the $500 or $600 piece of equipment, and you have to put it in beta. Nancy, because you're a member of the School of Podcasting, if you go into the that thing, the heartbeat, I've got screenshots of how to set that up. But it just came out. Seen and Heard production says Seen and Heard podcast is a show for lively discussions, hilarious banter, and thought-provoking insights. So that's kind of the vibe on everything from trending topics, politics, pop culture to everyday life. That's a lot of stuff. Trending topics, politics, and pop culture. So we could be talking Katy Perry one day, and the next day we're talking about, I don't know, bombing Israel or something like that. So it's a little, I would just call that pop culture-ish. But I love the fact that it's lively discussions. Who's it for? That's something. She says there's more. But wait, there's more. Whether you're tuning in for laughs and debates or just feel part of the conversation, we've got something for everyone. And typically the word everyone to me is, but not always. Because in some cases, if we're talking about depression or making more money, that kind of applies to everyone. Let your voice be heard as part, or let your voice be part of Seen and Heard podcast. Well, I like the title because everybody wants to be seen and heard. So it sounds like a kind of like this, right? You're firing up your microphone and let's talk about whatever's going on. And there you go. Sharon, there's no line waiting. If you want to call, I know you were waiting while I was talking to Mr. Production person with the Time Travel podcast, but there's no line waiting. Randy's giving me tips. He says, watch the screen on your Roadcaster, Dave. If someone calls in, you'll see an alert. Yep, but it doesn't make an audible alert. Yeah, it doesn't, which is good because otherwise it would ruin your recording. Yeah. So, and if somebody's on the line, I can only take one call at a time. So if somebody's on the call, you can call in, but I can't accept your call until that person leaves. So, yeah. Nancy says this is so cool. And I know Ralph was waiting a long time. Sorry about that, buddy. All right, here we go. Champions Mojo for Master Swimmers on the podcast review show many moons ago. Part 1. Champions Mojo, so we know it's a sports show, I would think, right? Is the podcast that fuels your comeback, helping you rise, rebuild, and thrive through life's challenges. So now I'm like, is it about sports or is it about life? Hearing inspiring stories and experts' insights from world-class swimmers. Part 2, elite coaches and wellness thought leaders, hosted by health coach and world record holder, master swimmer, Kelly Palace. So with that, if I'm just thinking out loud, part of me goes, this is how to be a better swimmer. But the thing you have here about getting through life's challenges. So it's life advice from swimming people. So, and the benefit is obviously how to thrive in life's challenges, inspiring stories. So we're going to be inspired. We're going to get insights from world-class swimmers, but that's the part I'm confused on swimming or on life's challenges or a work-life balance when you're trying to be a world-class swimmer. Because world-class anything, have fun because you got to spend a lot of time doing that. So keep that. That's again, this is just me thinking out loud. So I may not be your target audience or just stupid in some cases. It's like, what do you mean you don't get my pitch? Well, here we go. From Black Women's Health, a podcast for grown-ass Black women. I love that. Again, there's your attitude coming through to provide health scoops. I love that. I've never had a health scoop. I love that. A health scoop, tips and insights to help navigate and optimize their health care. I like that. Yeah, optimize, she says, their female health care. So it's, there you go. Straight to the point. I I like the attitude, insights, and the benefit help you navigate and optimize their healthcare. Because if you've ever had to deal with healthcare in America, oh, is that fun? So keep that in mind. But and that's fairly short, right? That's about 3 sentences or less. The point is, you want to kind of, once you get this to wherever you like it, you want to like not so much memorize it so that you can say it to people like a robot. My show is about this. I help people who want to do this so they can be benefited. Like, but you want to have it so that when somebody says, tell me about your show, you can go, oh, it's called blank and blank. And it's a podcast for grown-ass Black women to provide health scoops and tips and insights to help them navigate and optimize their healthcare, right? Their female healthcare. So instantly they know who it's for, what's it about, and how you're going to benefit. Those are the three that I like to like. Those are the first 3 touch points. And then from there, can we add a little bit of, I'm not sure what a little bit of like, what do you mean by a health scoop? That's why I like that. I'm like, I've never listened to a health scoop. All right. That's a little like, curious. I've never heard that. It's like the one said, this is how true crime should sound, or this is how news should sound. You're like, well, what do you mean by that? It's vague, but it kind of, for me, scratched my curiosity itch. So keep that in mind. We got about, here we go. Shooting It Straight from Randall Black. Brand new. Dang, son. Shooting It Straight is where we take lessons from the basketball court and dunk them. So here we go. Right into everyday life. We talk resilience, leadership, and all the character stuff. Not just character talk, character stuff. Again, showing your attitude and all the character stuff your coach and your grandma would be proud of. If you're an athlete, a parent, or just trying to level up at life, this show's for you. Bam, son! Which, if you haven't figured out, is the kind of catchphrase of one of the hosts there. So here he's at the end. He's kind of saying, look, it sounds like a basketball show, but it's not. It's through the lens of basketball, right? So I'm sure they'll talk about, that's a 3-point shot when you eat less and exercise more. But he lets you know what it's about: resilience, leadership, building a strong character. And I love the fact, stuff your grandma would be proud of. So there you go. Well done, Mr. Black. And then, of course, I didn't mention this, and I didn't mention it in the slides either. The last thing you want to say out of your mouth. Anybody want to guess? We'll put this in the. I'll let you guys answer. And I realize everybody's like, why is Dave looking left all the time? I'm trying to look at you, but I got a chat room over here, so I'm running everything here. And I know there's like a 10-second delay on this. So what's the last thing out of your mouth after you do your pitch? Anyone? Oh, Dan's coming in here in a second. Bam, son, we'll see if Dan can answer the question. Dan, thanks for calling in. Dan, what would be the last thing out of your mouth after your pitch? I'm going to hit you with a pop quiz. And Dan's listening on the website as well. See, this is the stuff you do. You're like, oh, I know this now. On Saturday, I'll be telling people, please mute your son. Dan, I can hear you. You're on. You're live with Dave. See, there's a delay.
Which Dan?
Dan, you. You're the only Dan there is. You're the one that counts. You. I can hear you, Dan, so keep talking. Dan, you're on.
Tune in.
Yes, you are. I'm hearing you right now. So quit listening on the website and listen on your phone. If you're on your phone or on your computer or whatever you're doing. There we go. See this, kids? Go ahead, Dan. I'm going to be quiet so Dan will catch up with me.
Dan Keller or another one?
No, that's the only one. I can only have one call at a time. Dan Keller. The one.
Okay.
There we go. Beautiful. So let's hear your pitch.
Right. Yes. Parkinson's science is here because patients are waiting. Parkinson's science is here because patients are waiting. We feature research findings on new mechanisms, treatments. Parkinson's science is here because patients are waiting. We feature research findings on new mechanisms, treatments, and other aspects of the science underlying Parkinson's disease. We serve people with Parkinson's, their families, health professionals, and anyone else interested in working toward a cure.
Nice. Know who it's for. You say what it's about, and you know, kind of the benefits again. So what's the last thing you're going to add to that pitch? And we can listen to, because he's listening online. Yeah, Dan, you're live. What's the last thing you're going to say at the end of your pitch? And if anybody wants to answer in the chat room, that's great.
Where to find it?
Where to find it? There you go. Tell them what he's won. Excellent. Thank you, Dan.
Good. Thanks.
And I forgot to ask him. Oh, silly me. I forgot to ask him what his website. He answered the question that I didn't say. And where can you find it? So everybody in the chat room, put your URLs for your, because you all did great jobs with your pitches. But the last thing you want to do is to say, oh, you know, I help podcasters with websites get more traffic to their website. You know, find me at podcastwebsitetips.com, the official podcast of podpage.com. All right, Carl's back with a new and improved. Way to go, Carl. The podcast where truth meets clarity. In a world flooded with misinformation from politics, Carl brings you sharp, honest takes on the news, culture, and trends that shapes our lives. See, now I know what he's talking about. This is a political show, basically, in a nutshell. Try to bring it down. Sharp, honest takes on the news. There we go. So I know what I'm getting into. Well done. Yeah, Ralph is like, is it live or is it Memorex? I'm going to have to figure that out. Like, I'm just going to have to tell, because I know if you listen to radio shows, right? What do they say? Mute your phone or mute your radio. Turn off your radio, and then you listen on the phone. So I don't know what it's like. Yeah, Richard is saying, the Talk to Me guy. I know that guy. Yeah, everybody, if you get a chance, put your URLs in the chat room, because we're going to be wrapping up here in a few minutes. I really appreciate you taking time to come out today. Hopefully, if nothing else, my goal here today was to get everyone to think, because I know there is kind of, while there are ingredients of what makes a good pitch, everybody can be a little different because everybody's show is a little different. Everybody's target audience is a little different. So the verbiage might not work exactly the same. And so be sure to put the links in the chat room so we can include those in the show notes when this goes on YouTube eventually. And I appreciate your time. Yeah, big Black Women's Health. Yeah, be sure to put your, because right now I'm going to guess blackwomenshealth.com. Seen and Heard Podcast put in a YouTube channel. Do you have a domain? Because to me, when I ask for your website, I'm looking for something.net.com. Something. The reason for that is, I always say that because you control your domain. Number one, being a Podpage user, when you have your domain pointed at your website, you get better SEO. Number two, in the event you ever get kicked off of YouTube, and yep, that happens. If the only URL I have for you is a YouTube channel, it's no good because you got kicked off. So always point people at your domain where they can also sign up for your newsletter. They can follow your show either on YouTube or Spotify or Apple or Pocket Cast or whatever they're using. Ralph says this was kind of handy, Dave. So I appreciate that, Ralph. And I don't know why. Either there's a very long delay or nobody is putting their links in the chat room. I'm like, I'm not sure how clear I can say, please put the link to your website in the chat room. Seen and Heard podcast did. She just put her YouTube channel, which is fine. So Stan says this was informative. Thank you so much. A production point is covering his ears. So maybe that means it wasn't informative for that person. I apologize. I tried. But if everybody can put their link to their show in the chat room, the door is closing soon. And we'll be ending this. And if you haven't checked out podcast website tips, speaking of that, let me do that. Podcast website tips.com is the podcast from Podpage about having a website. Unless I just thought of this, YouTube might not let you do that. Is that the case? That you're like, hey, I tried to put in my URL, it won't let me. Although Seen and Heard was able to, maybe that's why YouTube let her put her YouTube channel. Is that the case? If someone could let me know. Thank you. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Kel Threeler? Sure. That's what we're going with. Kel Thieler. Keep that in mind. And with that, I'm going to bid you adieu. Thank you for yes, Champions Mojo for master swimmers. You didn't answer my question though. Is it about life or is it about swimming? And there you go. And Seen and Heard podcast is picking up subscribers. Good to hear. That's why I wanted people to put their links in the website. At growthandbusiness.com would be my guess to that. I'm going to guess that people can't put their domains because it'd be really weird for podcasters not to self-promote because we're really good at that. I was able to do that because it's my thing. The 3 is silent. See, I never would have guessed that. So it's Keller. Interesting. Isn't the internet fun? All right, folks, both, they say. All right, excellent. All right, well, if you have any ideas for future monthly meetups, we do have some new things coming out very soon, just little minor tweaks that are going to make your life easier in Podpage. And I'll get with Brendan to see when we're officially announcing those, but we're currently beating the snot out of them to make sure that they work. Oh, wait, I have one pinned. No, I got that one. Okay, good. Excellent. And so stay tuned. If you're not a member of the Facebook group, go into Facebook, search for Podpage. There's a Podpage user group there that we have a lot of fun, and we're posting things like the road call me. I put a video about that in there. And if you want more Dave Jackson, you can always find me at schoolofpodcasting.com. And last but not least, I will leave you with this thought, which is if you are not a Podpage user, go over to podpage.com/preview. You can type in the name of your show. You can paste in your RSS feed. If you're doing a video only podcast, you can put in your YouTube and we will pull that in and you can kick the tires on Podpage for 14 days and make sure that it's a good fit for you. And if it is, great, then pick your plan and join the rest of the amazing people that are using Podpage to promote their podcast and get more people and more ears to their content. So I'm Dave Jackson, head of podcasting here at Podpage. Thanks so much. And we'll see you again real soon. Go podcasting.